Hello and welcome back to Misinformed with me, your host, Iduo. Today we've got a very special episode for you with our first ever guest. For the sake of dear God, for the sake of anonymity, we will be calling him a respectful Slendy.
Hey,
What an introduction. Really stellar work from our man in the studio. That's right, he's a dear friend of ours. But that being said, today we have a very special topic to discuss here. One that we all know various amounts about furries and why they exist. Mr. Slendy, what do you have any specific things to say about the nature of why you believe they might exist? As we'll be using you as a somewhat of the average person, you know? For instance, do you think it's just a social phenomenon? What would you say off the top of your head?
it is a social phenomenon where it brings many people, probably with shit, no, probably people with some insecurities together.
So it's a form
I
of
guess.
building community.
Yes.
Well, that does sound pleasant. There are lots of things like that, despite the stigma that it has. So that's certainly one perspective. That's certainly one perspective. And you know what? I would say that that's the average person's view. But Mister Slendy, do you happen to be familiar with the history of being a furry or a history of furries?
To an extent, they did start in like the late '80s, over time in the '90s, but they did basically explode when the internet came into like proper like functionality in the early 2000s. That's when they really did explode.
Now that's certainly true. You've certainly got a point. But interesting detail about the origins. Uh, it, they actually started a little bit towards the earlier of the 80s, just after and partially during the Vietnam and Korean Wars.
Pardon?
Yeah, during the Cold War.
I don't.
Isn't that timing a little interesting, a little coincidental, one might say?
I don't. I don't believe that's how that works.
I mean,
That
it seems to be.
happened.
Now, what I would ask you is, in your experience, have you ever met a Soviet sleeper agent?
No, I can't say I have.
Have you ever met a furry?
Yes.
Now, what if I told you that the reason you've never seen a Soviet sleeper agent and a furry in the same room is because they are one and the same?
I don't. I don't think that's how.
It's the same logic as the Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Dear God, it's flawless.
That what?
I'm just saying, have you ever seen even a KGB agent and a furry in the same room? I haven't. I haven't even seen a picture. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna
I
look it up right now. Furry. No, I'm not gonna look up furry KGB
I don't think you
officer.
should look
Actually,
that. Do not look
I'm
that up.
not gonna
Do
look that up
not.
on second thought. But we're gonna just believe me here. It doesn't exist. Hasn't happened. Those two things never been in the same room before.
Are you saying you believe that?
I'm saying I firmly believe that every furry, maybe not necessarily is a Soviet sleeper agent, but was converted by Soviet sleeper agents. That's how this whole thing started. Maybe now it's different. Maybe now it truly is just a very passionate community building. But isn't it a little weird how much it caught on? Especially when the internet came around. Almost like some form of, I don't know, brainwashing? A little societal
I
interference? A little going in there, forming
I
communities to spread roots?
I think you're looking too deep. It's just in most cases online. It was just an internet group of people.
Well, yes,
Like
you're
a fun.
right. But let's think about it for a second, all right? what does the military wear, if you wouldn't mind me asking?
Well, for most militaries, it's like I don't know, like camouflage, I guess.
Well, yeah, but it's a uniform of sort. It's everyone
Yes,
in it wears the uniform, right?
yes.
It's how you denote different parts of the military. You know, the difference in the uniforms, even.
Uh-huh.
And what do all furries tend to have in common in large group meetings?
I don't know. Their suits.
Yeah, they all wear suits. And isn't it interesting that there are subcategories for these suits?
What do you exactly mean by
Well,
subcategories?
like different species. So it's visually apparent that one group of furries might be distinct from the others, like different branches of the military, perhaps.
I think you're thinking too much. It's just animals.
I don't
That's
think you're
literally it.
thinking enough about it.
What do you, how would you know?
Slendy, I want you to take a step back right now, all right? I want you to
What do you
take
mean
a
take a
step back.
step?
I want you to forget everything you know. And I want you to, if I were to show you a picture of a KGB agent, would you really be able to distinguish it from a furry?
The hell does it even mean?
It means what I said. If I were to, do you think you could?
I don't know.
I'm just saying. If you're so confident that I'm wrong, which I might be. I might be. I'm not always right. I'm right a lot, but I'm not always right. Would you be willing to put your money where your mouth is, though? For me to send you an image and you tell me which is which.
Okay, John.
All right,
I'll take on your whole bet. I
putting this in the
guess.
Discord. Now, what would you say that is?
Well, that just looks like a. I once. It's. It's not
Well,
like a.
is it
No,
a
it's a high
KGB?
ranking.
Is it a KGB related thing, or is it just a furry, or is it both?
That could just be a KGB like commander or high rank, whatever.
Yeah. No. I agree. What about that image?
That's a furry.
That's a furry. That's a furry. Now, what, pray tell, do you think about this next one? It's either or, right? There's no crossover. Unless there might be.
That just looks like a cartoon or a mobile game picture you sent
But
me.
what does
What?
it say? Would you read the words?
Okay, it says KGB Bears.
KGB Bears.
Okay.
Well, isn't that interesting?
What the fuck did you find?
It seems we're at something of an impasse here. But that's only one example. That's not conclusive by any means. So, which category do you think this next image falls into?
I can't tell what that is.
That's
Oh wait.
valid.
Oh no, that's just a. Well, that's just something called someone's what is it called? For for persona? Yes. That's just someone's persona.
Yeah, and what do they happen to be wearing?
I don't know, a jacket.
A trench coat, cut off at the knees.
Okay, most trench coats are cut off at the knees.
You're right, and it's a tan trench coat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty simple thing. It's not something that really stands out too much, wouldn't you agree?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty mundane overall. But oddly enough, doesn't it seem to bear somewhat of a resemblance to this image?
You're not you're
Perhaps
you're
even
not you're not comparing
this image.
you're not comparing trench coats from when Joseph Stalin wears it versus now, are
Now
you?
hold on. Compare. I don't know if I'm comparing anything. I'm just asking questions. All right.
The
I'm
fucking
just asking
man.
questions. And what about that one? Oh, well, wasn't that color a little similar too? Hmm.
They all look.
I think
They
I've seen that
all.
color before. Hmm.
They're all gonna look the same
Oh, so now all trench coats look the same, huh?
for most cases.
That's a little insensitive of you, but all right.
How is that insensitive?
I'm just saying, as someone that likes coats, I don't think they're all that similar all the time. But whatever. Hey, you're entitled to your own opinion.
You are you are going to actually.
But look, I'm no judge, right? I'm no historian. I'm no ex-military personnel with highly classified intelligence and information of that nature that could be trying to blow the lid on a conspiracy theory that's been plaguing our nation for years. I'm none of those things. But don't you think it's just a little weird? Like just a little bit. Just a hint odd. Mr. Slendy.
No, we shit. We. I mean,
No, go on, go on.
I meant.
Oh, oh.
I'm. I meant furries are nothing more than simple people who just like to cosplay or even just interact like a anthropomorphic animal character, like you see in like your cartoons, movies, stuff like that.
All right, that's fair. You know what? I'm sure that it's in some way. This is a weird connection to make, but based on what you're saying, it almost sounds like kind of like how people will be willing to follow orders in certain circumstances because it's more comfortable. Less thinky. Like the submissive versus dominant thing, that type of thing, where you're kind of willing to be pushed around, so to speak. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I think this is
Not the
okay.
same,
On
but
that,
vaguely similar in the way of like acting like something that is a little simpler than the complexities of being human, like full human, constantly making decisions for yourself.
wait, I mean, they don't have a leader.
I didn't say they did. I was just saying that they'd be willing to listen to possible.
It's just an influencer on like I don't know Instagram, TikTok. I don't fucking know.
So it sounds like it's possible.
I mean,
You're agree- so if Stalin had a TikTok,
you
would
can't just
furries listen
say
to him?
you can't just say can Stalin have a TikTok and furries will That's
I
not how
mean,
that works.
and why
No
not?
one's
Why not, Mr. Slendy?
because it's not true furries. Anyone who is a straight communist would probably just listen to Joseph Stalin.
Ah, so furries and communists would listen to Joseph Stalin on TikTok.
No,
Isn't that an interesting combination?
furries aren't separate from furries are still people.
Of course.
They are
I'm not
not a
saying they're not. I
separate
would never say
group.
communists aren't people, and
We're
nor would
not
I say furries are.
I'm saying it's okay. It's oh fuck. Okay, hold give me a second.
Oh, by all means, take your time, Mr. Slendy.
Uh,
I've got more to say if you
most
if you need a minute.
most most furries aren't. They're not a political different group or similar to communists. They'll just probably follow it, and some will, some won't. Okay.
Okay, so they're not a political group.
Yes.
All right, that's fair. You know what? Just because you're part of a social group doesn't mean you always share the beliefs. For instance, there are even people that go to what's an example? Um Democratic convention, well, not the proper Democratic National Conventions or whatever, but conventions of Democrats that might not be that much of a Democrat. Like sometimes they'll just be almost more independents. Sometimes people that are Republican will go just to see what it's like. Kind of the same thing where just because you're in the group doesn't mean you follow a different belief. Or, for instance, not every person that's Christian is a Republican. That type of thing. Not every furry would be a communist. Same thing, right? Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a political group.
Yep.
So then, why is it that in fact they have a flag?
What flag?
There's flags for being a furry.
I don't know what you're talking
They
about. I haven't
even
seen any
add
flags.
to various forms of pride flag, their symbol. But for instance, since you have not been kept up to date on these things, I can't blame you. There is an example of that flag. Isn't that interesting?
Well, that's just, that's just a trans. That's just someone's trans. That they're a trans furry. That's it. Literally it.
All right, that's totally fair. But wouldn't that mean that they are somewhat of a political group?
I don't think that's how that works.
I mean, think about it. Well, there's all these conversations for like rights of various groups, such as the trans community, the LGBT community as a whole. And that is a political movement as well as a social one at the end of the day. And you know that because they have flags, Mr. Slindy.
I think you're You have not seen anywhere on the news about a furry movement anywhere.
You might be right. But I don't watch the news, Slendy.
Even if it's
I
not
don't
on the
watch
news.
the news.
Even if it's
I
not.
am a reliable source of false information. I don't watch the media.
The media never says anything about it.
Oh, the media doesn't say much about communist sleeper cells either. Isn't that weird?
It's because we're not back in the 70s.
And we're not back in the 70s either, so they don't talk about the furries.
Furries were in the 70s.
The 80s, whatever. The time period. The Cold War didn't end until like 89, technically, so I'm still right. I'm still in the right time period.
No one remembers that.
But I'm just saying, isn't it weird that they disappeared from the public spotlight around the same time? Stop being considered. Stop being acknowledged, even.
What the fuck are you talking about? We're still being acknowledged. I'm like, shit, they're being acknowledged in most cases.
I don't even have problems with communists. I'm just trying to say, if being a furry is a cover for being a communist, just be honest about it.
It's not. We're not communists.
Would you share a fursuit?
What?
If you were a hypothetical furry, and I was also a hypothetical furry, and one of us we could only afford one fursuit, would we get a communal fursuit for each other to share?
There's no such thing as a communal fursuit.
But if there would you?
You can't buy something called a communal fursuit.
What if it's
they
just
are
a
for
normal
specific buyers.
Oh, yes,
just normal body.
Similar enough, all right? What if we're similar enough in body size, and you want to go to a convention that's, I don't know, in Montana for some reason. I want to go to one that's in Delaware. And they're on different months, but we can only afford one suit between the two of us. So would you be willing to take the suit to your convention, and then later I take the same suit to mine, hypothetically?
What the? Why? You do realize that the suits are meant for something, right?
Is it the spreading of communism and its various ideologies?
No, it's
on.
It's your personal suit. You can't just have.
So furries wouldn't share. Is that what you're saying to me,
I mean,
Mr. Slendy?
that probably suits. It's expensive. It's requires some cleaning here or there. Um, some suits are. I got all this from like a website once.
This is a weirdly thorough website, but go off.
They seem very thorough about how they are with their merchandise
It's
on
merchandise.
on the website. They said,
All right.
like posters and stuff.
I don't know if you're describing posters there, but all right.
Hey,
So
yep.
here's. Would you say that the furry community as a whole is generous?
I mean, yeah.
Would you say they're pretty inclusive?
Well, yeah, pretty open-minded mostly.
Interestingly enough, you know what one of the most inclusive factions of Warhammer 40,000 is?
Don't you dare say it.
It's the Tau.
I
And wouldn't you know it, it's the only communist faction that I can think of, don't look it up.
you're
They're willing to bring in anyone as long as you go fully communist and there's actual straight up brainwashing like a sleeper cell would have.
you are not comparing me
It
to the.
seems kind of similar here.
You are not comparing me to the fucking Tau, are you?
Comparing you? What do you? Oh, how would I be comparing you? I'm comparing the furry community. Unless there's something
Yes.
you'd like to tell the audience. And with that, I think we have. I think we might have reached some varied conclusions about several different subjects. But I'm willing to say that furries are probably some kind of sleeper cell experiment by the
Okay,
communists
that's
in
it.
the
I'm
Cold
gonna.
War.
Yes, I have a furry. You hear me? This fucking thing. You better hope to pray you can end this quicker, because I am one. He's saying we're not communists. We're not secret agents. We're not even any of that. We're just a bunch of fucking people wearing fucking suits and shit.
Well, all right. You can choose
I
who to
have a
believe.
furry.
You can choose who to
I
believe.
have multiple
The
furries.
communist furry who's part of a sleeper cell,
I'm
or
not a communist.
me, the misinforming capitalist.
I'm not a.
You decide.
You count that.
And I'll see you on the next episode of Misinformed. Probably with a new guest, because I think I have outlasted my welcome with this guest.
I'm gonna rip yourself apart and make you into a suit.
Subscribe.